Und da sind wir wieder zurück bei The Old City, Leviathan. So, ich habe das Spiel neu geladen, weil ich in einer neuen Session bin. Und man muss die Kapitel immer wieder neu anfangen. Also bin ich schnell mal hier losgerannt, habe mal wieder die Notiz 2 eingesteckt. Und wir werden den nächsten Abschnitt lesen, bis wir das durch haben. Wir haben ja fast die Hälfte hier. Immerhin. So, wir waren bei We are all cowards. But of course, it is here that I should apologize, though I do not fully understand why. It is obvious that I'm a negative soul, and it is obvious that most people are blissfully stupid, to the point of being what I venomously described as optimistic, so I imagine my barrage of weaponized reality and no, not devastating, pity. That's what you feel, isn't it? Huh? You absolute dullard. I take back my apology. Of course that's what you feel, because you only ever feel. You're like the rest of the poor buffoons who feel before they think. Thus, you make your thoughts irrelevant like me. You're not even internalizing the actual implications of my negativity, are you? With each passing remark of the absolute ridiculousness of reality, you wonder what wound I hold that makes me twisted. With each jab at your preposterous notions of self-worth, you imagine me experiencing some trauma that ruined my psyche forever, be it the death of a loved one, molestation, torture, abuse, or perhaps the fall itself. You wonder what happened to me. Well, let's remove the fog. The reason I am negative is because I am not totally moronic. Yes, that is all. I'm just barely intelligent enough to see the vanity of every last piece of this universe. Are you now shifting your thoughts? Are you now supposing that I am simply insane, thus moving from pity to disgust? I have heard the ceaseless echoes of your popular psychology, reader, and they do not move me. Your repeated assertions of a broken mind that you claim are born of your own intuitions are wholly weightless, and your ironically patronizing desire to comfort me in this realization simply shows your complete neglect for critical thought. You feel what you want to feel and think as a result. Idiocy. For as long as I am alive, I will think before I feel. My thoughts lead me to the conclusion that there is nothing but void, and I will feel accordingly. The final assumption of my character is on the horizon. Soon you will imagine me to be enjoying my negativity. From pity to disgust to hatred, you will arrive at a place where I am like the others who wallow in their own pathetic nature, as if perceived sadness is a style of clothing that I can don to foster some notion of uniqueness. If I were like them, I would value myself as an individual. To do so would be to ignore sense. You are wrong, but you are wrong for a different reason than you might suspect. It is not that the inverse of your assumption is true. That is to say, I am not deeply depressed or saddened by the vanity of everything. Consider what I told you before. This is not the sort of morbid sense that is born of sadness. No, I am morbid because I recognize the hollow nature of life. You cannot escape the fact that I am not a wounded animal to be pitied. I am not so insane as to be wrong, and I am certainly not masturbatory in my recognition of pointlessness. These buffers of assumption you place between your world and mine are as pathetic as your pursuit of happiness, so please spare me your bloated assumption of emotional damage and engage my assertions with some semblance of reason. At least make the attempt to discuss with me on my own terms, that is, intelligent terms, not that I am uniquely gifted with intellect. On the contrary, I believe I am somewhat dense relative to most minds. You, on the other hand, refuse to use your own intelligence, and I have no patience for that. So I suggest you stop reading this now if you're so inclined to continue analyzing my psychology with all the ability and intuition of an ape simply to create obstacles between the truth of what I am saying and your concept of reality. I am not unique. I am not especially intelligent. I am by no means attractive. And I'm certainly not interesting. However, I am right. Therefore, the better methodology is that of conflict. Rather than enduring your condescending attempts at psychoanalysis, I invite you to converse with me. Engage in argumentation as if we are playing chess. Sit down where I sat before this desk and do battle with my ideas. Put aside your archetypal pondering for just long enough to see my pieces on the board and react to them using the rules of the game. After all, such an engagement is a statement of respect. I have shown my respect for you, reader. I want to argue with you, and I would not if I did not believe that you were capable of reciprocating. Gut, das Wort kenne ich. Add meaning to this drivel by understanding it. Admittedly, I do presume to be right, meaning I assume that you are wrong. As I know you disagree with me, I know you have a far less negative view of the world, but I respect your intelligence all the same. Even the smartest minds can hold the stupidest ideas simply because they refuse to try. Ja, natürlich. Man fängt natürlich an, seinen Charakter zu analysieren, besonders wenn er so viele Switches drin hat, dass er direkt davon ausgeht, wie wir sind und so weiter. Aber das ist, glaube ich, der wichtigste Absatz in dem ganzen Ding, würde ich fast sagen, dass er argumentieren will, wie ein Spiel Schach, dass er den Austausch will von hinher. Das braucht er einfach nur. Ihm muss nicht bewiesen werden, dass er Unrecht hat, weil er der Meinung ist, er hat sowieso Recht, davon mal ab, aber er möchte diesen hinher, den Kram möchte er. So wie ich das verstehe. So. Note 3, 9th of January. I forgot to mention something in my last note. I forgot to tell you about my most prized possession. Indeed, the single object is more important than the whole of my life. It is essentially sacred. Although it is not religious or even spiritually oriented, this book, this tome, if you will, is your key to the vast of humanity. Above my desk, just below the wooden trim that remains on the ceiling, you will see a hole covered with some stretched leather from an old glove. If we remove this covering, you will see a small hollow. In this hollow is the greatest treasure you will ever find in all of your scavenging. Bound in cloth and elastic string for preservation, my dictionary with an attached encyclopedia sits in the dark waiting for you to discover it. This single book allows you to understand my rambling. More importantly, it is a window into the old world. By nature of not knowing the old world, you are relatively ignorant. You should not worry, and I should hope that you are not so easily offended, as ignorance is not something that anyone can truly fault, at least not legitimately. To some extent, you cannot legitimately fault anyone for stupidity either. Intelligence can certainly be trained, so there is at least marginal room for fault. But the true culprit of our intellectual downfall is a lack of creativity. In my experience, creativity is nothing but a willingness to use one's intelligence to understand the connected nature of data. Understanding itself is a creation, and this dictionary provides you with a wellspring of data. You actually have a psychological advantage over the people of old because data is sparser than it was before. You have a drive to collect it. Before, we had structures built to feed us data, regardless of whether or not we wanted it or found it useful. Oh, on that note, I should say that not all of the data in this dictionary will be useful to you. Do not attempt to memorize all of the words in our language, as that would be ridiculous and chiefly a waste of time. Rather think of this new Rather think of this new wellspring as a companion. I have other books from the times of old scattered throughout this room, and your new guide will help you navigate their secrets. Search them for clues like you searched my residence, scavenge them for knowledge, like you scavenge for food. If you do not trust in their worth, allow me to use my life as an example. Actual data, especially if anecdotal, has a way of leading people to truth without taking them through the muddy waters of personal bias and comfort. Yet it somehow remained authentic by nature of it being personal all the time. Anyway, when I was young, very young, I was expected to learn about the world. It was similar to how young people are expected to learn of survival now. However, in the comfort of the old world, survival was pushed aside to make way for broader and more important topics, such as the history of humanity, her thought, and her struggles. From this data, we could learn a great many things about life and how to proceed, and there were many ways of acquiring this material. One method was that of schooling. The assumption was that there are people who are more capable than others when it comes to passing knowledge on to children. We call these people teachers and professors. They were held on high as the achievement of thought. They were regarded as the paragon of all learning and the final bastion of reason in society. Unfortunately, this structure was complete nonsense. We neglected a core principle of learning to make way for our pride and our sense of safety. We forgot that people learn when they are interested. Are you interested in your new companion? Perhaps not. Yet, but you will be when you are presented with a problem that only your companion can solve. Comfort eliminated our problems, so we had to create them artificially. Children tend to be more smarter than us by nature of not having had the chance to kill their own creativity. So they quickly saw the ruse for what it was, and interest died. Thus, learning died with it. What we were left with an extremely inefficient method of communication that was not interesting and that was not interesting and in end of itself, and did not involve the presentation of any interesting material. Some of us benefited, though, and some of us simply adopted the structures of hubris as if memorization were something to be proud of. The arrogance of these individuals contributed to enormous heaps of information. They sat atop their mound of unused data, thinking they had climbed the highest mountain, when in reality all they managed to do was smother their own intelligence. I was lucky in that I was not subjected to this method of communication. At least I was not immediately subjected to it. My parents were somewhat unique in that they allowed me to learn autonomously. In the old world, we had buildings that existed as storerooms for books. I have my own library behind me on the metal shelves, but it is nothing compared to the sheer scale of these collections. Imagine almost limitless amounts of knowledge and thought contained in a single building, a grander thought I have never conjured. And to think, it is a memory of something that actually existed. What fools we were to ignore its worth. It is gone now, but I experienced it. Do you know how to teach a child to swim? One way is to describe the motions to the child. You can even describe buoyancy and the basic properties of water. Still, another method is to simply throw the child into the ocean, expecting the child to either die in the deep or learn through an extremely troubling experience. Neither of these methods are the ideal. What would happen if you gave the child a rowboat? Better yet, give the child a galleon. The child may never learn to swim, admittedly. In fact, the child may never leave the boat at all. But some children will not be able to tame their interest for long. Some children will see the water from the boat, and they will dive in. Luckily, the ocean is vast, and there are many places to explore and find interest in, so the other children would not be far behind. I can still recall the words of my parents as they left me at the library for countless hours. Go and learn, they said. Never was I given a direction. Never was I tested. No, I explored. You might be tempted to think that I was alone, but you would be wrong. I was participating in the full breadth breadth of human experience. I stood beside great men and women as I was given their secrets, their correct and their false information. All of it painted a picture of a reality that became more interesting as it unfolded. Like you, I found a great treasure, and I used it where I found interest. The others did not approve of this methodology, I'm afraid. Do you want to know why? It was because they were afraid. They avoided learning for the same reason that we are all evil. We are cowards. In this setting, their greatest fear was of being wrong, so they adopted standard content fold and standard ways. Standard things are not interesting things. Everything I learned from reading the various texts of the library was a true discovery. Value was based on my reaction, so what I learned was, of course, sporadic. I learned about astronomy, I dipped into mathematics, marine biology became important to me, and literature of almost all kinds was my love. I learned everything I could about everything that seemed important because it was in front of me for a limited time, and there were others who learned it this way as well. They were a few in number, but they existed. I spoke with one such child when I was of a similar age, and we discussed what we had discovered. I could see the way spark of exploration in his eyes that was undoubtedly present in mine. Everything was new. There was no sense of pride in any of it, either. We both learned different things, and when the learning overlapped, it was coincidence that gave way to acquaintance, where our findings diverged, the experience produced sharing. Wunderschön, wunderschön. On the other hand, when I talked with the countless hordes of horrid children from the schooling system, every piece of information was a medal they wore in their chest with the most disgusting sense of achievement. If I shared my findings related to a children's novel or perhaps an obscure work of fiction, I was met with the same repeated Shakespearean drivel. You haven't read Romeo and Juliet? Are you slow or something? I had to read that in 4th grade. I thought was completely wiped out. I was told what I learned was not important because it was not standard. A great portion of my thought was completely wiped out because it was not on some test given by some dry and dusty moron with some chalk and a piece of paper that dictates who is and who is not a member of the upper echelon of intellectual success. I don't like the work of Shakespeare. I find it to be void of any interesting content, entirely worthless. But that was simply my interest speaking. If some other child found it to be interesting, I would have been in no position to assert anything objective. What I found interesting was so because I am part of a diverse pool of humans, not so with school. It seems Shakespeare's was arbitrarily deemed essential to the knowledge of all life, and not to be interested in Shakespeare's shoddy and absurdly uninteresting drool was to declare oneself an idiot of the highest order. Yes, I was a moron because I did not swoon over the poorly constructed plays of some dead wordsmith who was so unable to use his language that he resorted to simply making up his own. At least, that is some form of creativity, I suppose. Ich kann mich minimal bis mehr mit dem identifizieren, muss ich sagen. Also so vom, also solche Gedankengänge hatte ich auch schon oft. Aber ich bin leider einer, der dann auch irgendwann in das Normale eingegangen ist. Also was die Abneigung zum Lernen in der Schule, sage ich mal, anging. Dass man den Scheiß aber mitgemacht hat, den Standardkram. Auch wenn man es nicht mochte, gut. Na gut, dann musste man sich, so kann ich das auch nicht sagen. Also es war schon eher dann in der, natürlich Freizeit, wo man sich dann Sachen gewidmet hat, die einen interessieren, die man nicht in der Schule lernt, die man, oh nein. Ihr wisst schon, also den anderen Kram halt, ne? Ja, schneller. Achso, ich bin ganz unten. Der Hammer. In truth, the hideous nature of the other children was only in part due to the structure they were subjected to. There were other factors, such as their social climate, rather than placing them in the context of the full age range of humanity, allowing for maximum experience. Parents placed their children on an industrial track only with those of the same year group. The practice is similar to defecating into a paper bag and breathing into it until passing out. We took the undeveloped nature of young humans and amplified it by leaving them alone together, creating what is undeniably the most toxic environment in all of human history. Darüber habe ich noch nie nachgedacht. Dass es eigentlich dumm ist, Gleichaltrige alle mal zusammenzupacken. Weil die wollen sich definitiv dann auf eine Gruppe die wollen mehr die Gruppenbildung haben. Die haben keinen, der jetzt deutlich mehr Erfahrung hat im Leben oder einfach älter ist, meinetwegen, der dann meinetwegen Struktur hat. Also ja, es wäre gemischt besser. Gibt viele Gründe. Aber ich muss es mal weiterlesen. At the end of it, we called it childhood, we called it growth. We labeled it normal and continued as if every human went through a phase of debauchery. Where was my phase of debauchery? Where was my adolescent days? I do not recall experiencing such a reckless and stupid era of my life that was so what us to grow out of. In reality, the efforts of this veritable toxin simply wore off over the course of the few years after this climate was enjoyed. Oh, how normal it was, yes, the drunkenness, the pure and self-induced idiocy, the sexual behavior that only accomplished an emotional destruction in later years, and the absolutely foul smugness of each and every stupid boy and girl that was manufactured into the same moronic scum over and over. Yes, a phase, yes, normal, absolutely preposterous. Ja. Wobei dafür die Schuld natürlich dann das System, die Gewohnheit und ähnliches trägt, ne? Also es ist so. Man kann es anders machen, aber das ist. Gehen wir mal davon aus, du hältst dich in der Lage, dein Kind im Heimschulunterricht so ungefähr zu belehren. Erstmal musst du dafür genug Geld haben, um dann dir das leisten zu können, dass du das Kind wirklich die Zeit unterrichtest, auch Fulltime. Es müssen jetzt keine 6, 8 Stunden am Tag sein. Kommt darauf an, wie du es machst und wie giftet dein Kind ist oder du musst dein Kind vorher wirklich kennen. Du musst wissen, wie es am besten lernt, was Sinn macht. Darauf musst du eingehen und so weiter, dir einen bestimmten Lernplan dann ausdenken und dann musst du natürlich auch noch für wichtig achten, was interessant ist. Großer Nachteil fürs Kind. In vielen Fällen wird es gemobbt werden, weil es nicht wie alle anderen zur Schule geht. Es wird ihn stören, sie stören, nicht zur Schule zu gehen, nicht so viele Leute da kennenzulernen und so weiter und so weiter. Ich weiß, es ist ein so schwieriges Thema. Es gibt auch noch 1000 negative und 1000 positive Aspekte. Also, But my dear reader, wir machen einfach weiter. You are exempt from this structure. You have escaped it through the timing of your birth. I congratulate you. It is fitting indeed that I was unable to avoid its fruits. It is my punishment for being worthless. But it's all worthless, no matter. You have a companion and you can use it to understand the universe. You have within your grasp one of the last keys to that which is truly important. You have a key to that which is grand, and you will not defile it with any sort of trained idiocy. Your new companion will help you if you are interested, and you see that is just the point. I'm not giving you an instruction of what to learn, rather than I'm simply giving you the instruction to learn. Your interest will guide your galleon, and all you must be is willing to sail. Och, jetzt ist das Spiel abgestürzt. Juhu, warum? Habe ich das beendet? Habe ich auf Beenden gedrückt? Ich weiß. Ja, komm, wir starten, bla bla. Postmord. Also wir fangen jetzt an. Alles klar, wir sehen uns gleich in der nächsten Folge. Ich überlege mir gerade, ob wir vielleicht die Einmal die Lesefolgen am Ende machen, dass wir hier alles lesen. Ich würde sagen, ja. Dann haben wir erstmal in Ruhe den anderen Kram. Dann gucken wir uns ganz entspannt die Umwelt an. Hören uns an, was sie zu sagen haben. Oder macht es Sinn für die Story, das nebenbei zu lesen? Ich weiß es nicht. Wir sind jetzt bei 2 them, also 2 them. Starten wieder am Fahrstuhl. Ich laufe mal wieder rum, hole mir das, was ich haben wollte. Und dann sehen wir uns gleich wieder, wenn ich wieder das habe, wo wir schon waren. So.
Simple little animals, aren't they?
Bis gleich.
Filthy, no doubt, but